Hello guys, welcome to the cabin of the freshly updated Subaru Forester. Yep, there's a updated Forester. I certainly didn't expect it so quickly, but you know this is a very competitive segment, and so you have to be at the top of your game. This is also Subaru's top selling vehicle in South Africa, the Forester, and so they really need to maximize the sales potential of this car. So they've made a few changes, some styling tweaks, some spec adjustments, some new colors and so on. Nothing dramatic, no massive powertrain changes or anything like that. But as I said, the Forester was still relatively fresh in my view, so maybe that's all that is needed. This is the top spec 2.5 SES derivative, and it competes with the likes of the Mazda CX-5 2.5 Akira, the Toyota RAV4 in top spec VX trim, and then if you spend 100,000 more you get the Volkswagen Tiguan. If you spend 100,000 less you can get a Haval H6. So it's sort of nicely in the middle of what is, as I said, an extremely tough segment. Let's see if it still cuts the mustard. Guys, if you still have any doubt about climate change, just look at this. This is Cape Town in February, supposed to be the hottest time of the year, every year. But it's pouring with rain, so I'm going to try and make this quick before I'm completely soaked. Design changes on this facelifted Forester is really minimal. Basically, your headlights more aggressively cut, slashed, and it creates this bigger, bolder section here. And that works to push the bigger grille, and everybody likes a bigger grille these days. Pushes this bigger grille outwards, so it's got a more aggressive face to it. And then there's a lot of piano black, satin silver on this SES spec, and even on the roof rails, which Subaru claims are more sturdy. So in summary, I think for Subaru, who isn't really known for leading the pack in terms of design, it's a good enough midlife refresh, I think, to keep the Forester interesting. So guys, inside the cabin of the newly facelifted Subaru Forester, this is the top spec 2.5 SES model, and to be honest, at first glance you're not going to see a lot of the changes because visually there aren't really any. Most of the changes are hidden within the infotainment and the safety tech. So is that a negative? I don't think so. The Forester's cabin is still a very nice place to be. It's still very well built, very much like a Lexus, I would say. Think of Subaru as kind of like a more affordable Lexus, and I think you're on the right track. They don't necessarily push the boundaries in terms of design and in terms of the sort of the flashy features. But it's all there, but then you've still got something like a CD player, for example, which I think tells you, gives you an idea what Subaru's target market really is. Slightly older target market potentially, but very solid, lovely leather wrapped steering wheel, lots of soft touch finishes. This flagship Forester is very generously kitted out with supple leather upholstery, as well as an electrically adjustable driver's seat with memory settings. And while it lacks heated seats, it does have a lovely panoramic sunroof. A nice touch are these extending sun visors. I wish all cars had them. Then, moving to the fascia layout, the Forester's cabin does have a lot of buttons, but most of the major functions are housed within a neat, high-resolution touch screen. Dual-zone climate control is standard on this model. In front of the driver is a fairly old-fashioned instrument binnacle with two analog dials flanking a central digital display, which gives you a quick readout of the fuel consumption, as well as, for example, the functioning of the lane keep assist system. A secondary digital display is mounted in the center on top of the fascia and gives you even more detailed information, including a compass, the state of various vehicle functions, and even oil and water temperature readings. In front of the gear lever is a small storage space which is a bit narrow for most modern smartphones. And while the Forester does have a good rear view camera, it doesn't have a full 360-degree system, but rather additional curbside cameras. Moving to the back seat, the doors open nice and wide, and there's more than sufficient leg and foot space, while headroom is also good. Rear passengers also have their own ventilation outlets and even access to 2 USB outlets. So moving to the back of the Forester, this is the top spec SES, and so it does have an automated tailgate, and you can set the level at which it settles from inside the car. Also nice, these little toggle switches here fold the seats flat very easily. It's not electronic, so you can't raise them back up. You have to go around and lift them up manually, but that's not too much of a faff. Lots of nice coat hooks all around the cabin, another 12-volt outlet as well. And then your spare wheel is hidden under a whole lot of plastic in here, and sadly it is only a space saver, but at least you have a spare wheel. Overall though, nice boxy, big, practical space. So this top spec Forester is still powered by Subaru's 2.5 litre flat 4. It kicks out 136 kilowatts and 239 newton meters of torque, and neither one of those figures are, you know, particularly headline grabbing. So this is by no means a performance car, even though it does have, you know, flappy paddle gear shifts, and you have an S mode as well, a more sporty reactive driving mode. It's a car for cruising, long distance, comfortable, all that kind of thing. So CVT transmission as well further sort of emphasizes the fact that this is not a sporty Subaru. This is a relaxed touring Subaru, and that's fair enough. I think the performance is decent enough for this category of vehicle, and actually very similar to the other big petrol engine vehicles that it competes with. Where it does fall a little bit short, however, is in fuel consumption. Now, Subaru claims a figure of 8.3 liters per 100, which is in itself quite high, but in the real world we are achieving around 9.5 liters per 100 kilometers, which is I think probably similar to what the other 2.5 litre petrol vehicles are going to achieve in the real world, but it's certainly not miserly, let me put it that way. So yeah, I would say the drivetrain does the job, but it doesn't shoot the lights out in any way, whether it's performance or efficiency. In terms of actual under the skin improvements with this updated Forester, there are two main areas. The one is NVH, and that stands for noise, vibration and harshness. So there's just been extra effort made to make the car quiet and refined, and to isolate, you know, road noise and wind noise and all those kind of things. And I can, you know, without having another a previous Forester next to this one to drive immediately afterwards, I can't really say whether that's been effective or not. But what I can say is that in my general driving thus far, the Forester does come across as a premium product. It's in the way that it sort of deals with road imperfections. It's very refined. The cabin is well insulated. It feels very, very solid and calm in the cabin. It feels like a quality product. So I think they've done well there. In terms of the other aspect that's claimed to have been improved, and that is steering response and ride comfort. Again, without having another Forester here to compare it with, it's hard to say whether, you know, how big the improvements are, but this is a lovely car to drive. It's, you know, it steers nicely. It's got a nice weighting to the steering, which is great. And in terms of ride comfort, you know, that's typically been a Forester strength. One of my very first long-term test cars ever was, I think, a second generation Forester, and and I fell in love with that car because of its ride quality. And this very much reminds me of that. It is a superbly comfortable car, even though this one is riding on the bigger 18-inch wheels. It's got a nice suppleness to it. It really sort of reinforces that luxury feel that you get from this car, which I really like. So it just feels like a quality, refined product. Right, so the one thing we do know about Forester drivers, in addition to them still listening to CDs, is that they tend to take their cars on gravel a fair bit more than, you know, your typical crossover SUV driver. So I found us some gravel, a bit of a motocross bike track here, but also close to a building site, and there's this nice steep gravelly hill which we are going to try and get up, which I'm pretty sure most of the softer rivals in this car's category wouldn't manage. So let's have a look. So this has 220 millimeters of ground clearance, which is you know, amongst the higher in its category. I think potentially the highest. And also remember, Subarus have that flat underbody, which really helps a lot. But this is really going to be quite a test for this car's approach and departure angles, because this hill is very steep. I'm not sure if the camera is going to show it accurately, but here goes. Yeah, no problem. And I think that's probably the toughest test that a Forester of this nature is ever going to face, and easy peasy. I must say, on gravel, you know, the Forester feels really in its element. I think far more than most other compact or mid-size SUVs rather. The Forester actually still feels like it's an off-roader, like it can do the rough stuff, and I really appreciate that. I think people obviously buy, you know, what's attractive to them and what they can afford, and it's very cool to have an SUV style vehicle, but what you get with a Forester is a vehicle that does what it says on the tin. It can still go off-road, it's good on gravel, it can do light off-roading, and you just listen to all that mud. This car's going to be full. Yeah, no, that was really fun. I think it's very good. Impressive job, Subaru. So as is the case with most vehicle updates these days, a lot of focus has been placed on the active safety features in the car. And so Subaru has significantly updated its Eyesight suite of safety systems. You've got adaptive cruise control, you've got active pre-collision braking, but now you've also got lane center keeping and even autonomous steering in some instances. So this is a safe car. It's got a 5-star Australian NCAP crash rating, and then you add to that the inherent safety benefits of the symmetrical all-wheel drive system, and you've got a vehicle that really in all conditions, whether it's gravel, road, ice, slippery conditions, really is a peace of mind kind of family car that you can take on, you know, loads of different surfaces, and you know that you're in safe hands. So should you consider the Subaru Forester as your next family SUV, family crossover? I really think you should. In fact, I think this car is criminally underappreciated in the South African market, even though it is Subaru's top seller. There just aren't enough Foresters on the road, based on how good this vehicle is. You know, 650,000 Rand is a lot of money for a car. And this is the flagship SES model. But that's still cheaper than the flagship Toyota RAV4. Still cheaper than the flagship Mazda CX-5. and it's similarly spec'd. You know, the one might have heated seats, and the other one has a panoramic sunroof, so the spec wise it all kind of balances out. But what those vehicles can't offer, where they can't match the Forester, is in terms of real world usability and to some extent also off-road ability. So the Forester has no trouble going on a gravel road. It feels very secure. It even does some light off-roading. And I don't think it's a surprise to see Foresters with kayaks and surfboards on the roof and mountain bikes on the back every weekend, because it's the kind of car that it is. It is a genuine lifestyle practical vehicle. Even the shape and the size of the boot, it just seems perfectly designed by somebody who understands what the vehicle is going to be used for. So yeah, I've grown to really admire the Forester. It really gets under your skin, this car, and I think it's a pity that in terms of design Subaru doesn't push the boundaries hard enough to make people notice the Forester more, so that they buy it, even if it's for the wrong reason of design. It's a pity, because Subaru deserves to sell a lot more Foresters than they do. And I'm not sure whether this update will radically change those perceptions and the sales numbers, but it deserves to. Thanks for watching, guys. Hope you found that informative. If you did, please hit the like button and consider subscribing as well. Really appreciate the support. Thanks so much. Bye.